Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. I spat a mouthful of blood into the sink and gripped the counter. My name is Jake, 26, and I honestly thought I was dying. The floor swayed once under my feet, then snapped back into place. My tongue searched my teeth and hit something raw that burned hard. For a second, I just stared at my reflection and waited to drop. Babe. It came out warped because my mouth would not close right. I tried again louder and felt another warm rush in my throat. Blood slid over my lip and dripped down my wrist in a line. That was the moment I knew this was not some tiny stupid thing. Babe, I need you. Her music leaked down the hallway and swallowed the last word. I pushed off the sink too fast and my knees almost buckled. I caught the doorframe with my shoulder and smudged it with red. I already knew she would hate that mark, and I still left it there. She appeared in the doorway in that tight black dress and raised brows. Her eyes dropped to my chin, then to the sink behind me. You bit your tongue again or what? She leaned on the frame like she was watching a dumb commercial. I tried to answer and another stream hit my palm instead of words. Her nose wrinkled like I had spilled juice on the carpet or something. Jake, I just finished my makeup. What are you doing right now? I grabbed a towel and pressed it against my mouth until my jaw ached. Under the towel, my teeth felt loose and my heartbeat pounded in my gums. I need the hospital. This will not stop and I feel weird. She shifted her weight and checked her phone while I talked. The screen lit her face and I saw the tiny excited smile appear. They are already at the club. We have the table till midnight. She said we like I was already in the car next to her. Meanwhile, I tasted metal and fear, and some stupid part of me apologized. I am not messing around. Something is really wrong with me tonight. My words came out thick and slow, and it scared me even more. I pulled the towel away to prove it, and fresh blood followed instantly. It trailed down my chin and soaked into the front of my shirt. Her eyes widened for half a second, then slid straight back to her phone. Urgent care is open tomorrow. You probably just need some rest anyway. She said it with that calm voice she used when I lost my keys. I could not believe she was using it with my blood on her wrist. Yeah, she had stepped closer for 1 second and it splashed on her arm. She flinched like the stain hurt more than the idea of me collapsing. Please drive me. I do not feel safe to drive myself there. I hated how I sounded right then, small and needy and almost begging. My hands were shaking, and not just from the blood loss or dizziness. It was the way she stared at me like I was wrecking her whole night. Call a ride, that is what the apps are for. It is fine. When I think back now, that line still hits harder than anything else. Not the blood, not the scans later, that one lazy sentence instead. At the time though, I did what I always did with her. I questioned my own panic first before I questioned her priorities. Maybe I was overreacting, maybe this was dramatic, maybe I should tough it out. Another wave hit and shut that thought down fast with one sharp swallow. I bent over the sink again and spat because breathing got difficult. Tiny black spots flickered at the edge of my vision like burnt pixels. You hear that? I lifted the towel and let the drops hit porcelain hard. If I pass out alone here, that is on you, you get that. She stared at the sink for a long second and chewed her lip lightly. That is not fair. You cannot put that on me like that. Her phone buzzed again on the dresser, and she checked it without shame. Everyone is already inside. They will lose the table if we are late. She said we one more time, but her body was already turned toward the door. I grabbed my own phone with clumsy fingers and opened the browser fast. Typed my symptoms in one line with way too many spelling mistakes. Every result screamed about clots and choking and emergency rooms. I did not need a full article to get the message from that list. My thumb hovered over the emergency number and sweat ran down my back. Look at this, I am not making this up in my head. I held the screen out, but my hand shook enough to blur it. She glanced over, barely more than a flick of her eyes down. Google always says you are dying, that is literally their whole thing. She laughed once, short and flat, like I had told a lame joke. Imagine if this was you right now. The words came out rough and louder than I planned them. If you were the one spitting blood, would you want me leaving? Her face hardened at that, and the joking edge vanished instantly. There you go, turning everything into a guilt trip before I even leave. That sentence told me more about us than the last month together. I did not see all of it then, not clearly, not in one clean moment. Back. Then it just felt like a slap over the panic already crawling. I felt stupid for even bringing up the comparison like I broke a rule. Still, the taste in my mouth reminded me I was not inventing this danger. She grabbed her little clutch from the bed and checked her reflection quickly. Call a ride, text me when you get there, I will come after a while. The way she said after a while sounded like maybe or never or whatever. She leaned in, kissed my cheek carefully like I was contagious or fragile. I am not your nurse, Jake, you have to handle some stuff alone. The door to the bedroom closed behind her and the apartment went oddly quiet. I heard the faint scrape of heels in the hallway and the soft click outside. For a moment I just stood there, towel pressed against my face, breathing shallow. Then another warm trickle escaped, slow and steady, soaking the fabric again. I unlocked my phone with bloody fingers and opened the ride app with a shake. The car honked once outside while the cloth at my mouth got heavier. I stuffed my feet into shoes, left my laces loose and almost tripped. Every step to the front door felt longer than it actually was. By the time I hit the hallway, my fingers were numb from pressure. I remember thinking, if I collapse here, no one even knows my name. I slid into the back seat and tried not to smear the upholstery. The driver glanced at me in the mirror, then looked again slower. You good, man? My answer came out half grunt, half choke, not exactly convincing. He shifted like he might turn around, and that scared me more than anything. If you kick me out right now, I am screwed. That is what I thought, not what I managed to say out loud. What came out was, hospital, please, the closest emergency entrance. He nodded once, tapped his screen and eased into traffic without comment. I leaned my head against the window and counted breaths just to stay present. Every bump in the road thumped through my jaw and into my ears. I kept the fabric tight over my mouth and felt it grow slick. Warmth seeped through to my palm in a slow, steady rhythm. The mirror caught my eyes again and I saw pure panic staring back. I tried to wipe it off my face and almost gagged on the metal taste. My phone buzzed in my free hand, that tiny vibration way too loud. For a second I almost ignored it, then I saw her name on screen. A preview popped up with a flood of laughing emojis and exclamation marks. Under it was a picture from outside the club, heels and sparkles everywhere. Seeing that while I sat bleeding in a stranger's car messed with my head. I unlocked the phone with smudged fingertips and opened her message. Just walked in, places packed already. Another bubble followed before I could answer. You make it to the ER or did you chicken out? She added a crying, laughing face like my fear was some running joke. I started typing, erased it, started again, erased that too. My first draft looked like a plea and I hated that tone. I finally wrote, in a car, going there now, mouth still pouring. I stared at the word pouring and almost changed it because it felt dramatic. Then another wet pulse hit my glove and proved it was not exaggeration. 3 dots showed like she was forming some answer, then vanished. The ride rolled past streetlights and everything outside blurred into streaks. All I could focus on was those dots flashing and disappearing again. My heart pounded in weird, uneven jumps that did not match the vehicle's motion. I wondered if it was blood loss or just pure stress from that empty screen. Her response finally slid in while we slowed at a light. Okay, tough guy, let me know what the doc says. No, I am worried, no, call me if it gets worse, nothing like that. Just a casual little message like I was grabbing fast food. I told myself she was trying not to freak me out, and even I did not buy it. The driver spoke again, voice low but clear through the quiet cabin. You want me to pull over for an ambulance instead? I shook my head too fast and the whole world dipped sideways. If he called anyone else, I imagined paperwork, bills, more chaos. I am already headed there, just keep going, I forced out through the cloth. We pulled up near the emergency entrance and the car finally stopped. Need a wheelchair or something? He twisted in his seat now, watching the way I struggled with the door. I wanted to say yes, to ask for more help like a normal person. Instead I muttered, I got it, and stumbled out because pride is stupid. Cold air hit my face, and the change made my teeth chatter instantly. I held the fabric tighter and felt it sag with the weight. Every step toward the sliding doors came with a whisper in my head. Turn around, go home, sleep it off, do not make this a scene. Another bubble of blood rose in my throat and killed that thought instantly. Inside, a woman at the reception counter looked up as I approached. She glanced at the stained cloth, then at my chest, then at my eyes. How long has this been happening? About an hour, I guessed, though time already felt stretched and warped. Saying it out loud made my own timeline sound reckless and dumb. Any trouble breathing? That question made me notice each inhale all over again. Sometimes it feels tight, then it loosens, then it tightens again. She pushed a button and called someone without breaking eye contact with me. The way her posture changed told me this was no casual nosebleed situation. A nurse appeared with a small rolling machine and a serious expression. Sit here, she pointed, already wrapping a band around my arm. The cuff squeezed down and my vision narrowed to a tunnel for a moment. Her gaze flicked to the little screen and something in her jaw clenched. Do not lean back yet, we are getting you a room. I heard the word room and felt a spike of fear and relief mixed. Room meant bed, wires, maybe needles, definitely not quick reassurance. A thin bracelet snapped around my wrist and the printer spat labels. She stuck one on the cloth I still held so tightly against my face. Keep pressure there, if it suddenly gushes again, shout for me. They moved me past a row of people hunched in chairs along the wall. I caught a few stares, a couple of tired eyes tracking the red stains. Walking past them made me feel like I was cutting a line I did not earn. At the same time, my legs felt shaky enough that I did not argue. Guilt and pure survival sat side by side in my chest and glared at each other. We reached a small curtained space and she guided me onto the cot. Lie down slowly, do not swing yourself, your pressure is not cute. That almost made me laugh until the room tilted again. She adjusted the cloth at my mouth and tucked a fresh pad against it. Anyone here with you tonight? That question hung in the air longer than anything else she had asked. I thought about saying yes just to skip the pity look. Instead, I swallowed another metallic taste and forced the word out. No, they had other plans. Her eyebrows lifted a fraction, but she let it drop, and that hurt more. My phone buzzed again on the little tray beside me. The nurse glanced at it, then at me, then walked away to grab supplies. I picked it up with one hand and wiped the screen with my sleeve. Notifications stacked from our group chat, friends tagging each other at the club. Right in the middle was a picture of her on the dance floor grinning wide. Under that photo she had typed, "Night just started, let's go crazy." I zoomed in on her face and felt something twist inside my chest. This was happening at the exact same time as my heart monitor beeped. Two versions of the night running side by side with zero overlap. I did not know it then, but that split was going to stay permanent. A doctor pulled the curtain aside with a quick practiced motion. Talk to me, any history of this kind of bleeding? I tried to shake my head, and the motion made the cot sway slightly. Never like this, mouth just started leaking and would not quit. He pressed along my neck and jaw, listening to each wobbling breath. We are checking your levels and getting imaging right away. Hearing the word imaging made my stomach clench in fresh panic. Imaging meant they were looking for something bigger than a cut. He mentioned clots and vessels and possible complications in a steady tone. The only word that really stuck was dangerous, lodged deep in my brain. They hooked a line into my arm and drew tube after tube. I watched the dark stream fill them and tried not to freak out. Part of me wanted to crack a joke about running out, anything to lighten it. Another part wanted to scream at everyone to move faster. Instead, I just stared at the ceiling and counted each beep from the monitor. While they worked, I tapped out another message with my free hand. Getting tests, they seem worried, might be serious. I stared at that last sentence for a long beat before hitting send. It felt like admitting something to both of us that I had tried to downplay. I waited, listening to my own breath, while the screen stayed painfully quiet. Her answer popped up just as they loosened the band around my arm. Wow, keep me posted, I already ordered drinks for the table. That one line hit harder than any needle they used on me. Drinks and possible internal bleeding in the same sentence, like equal events. I screenshotted it without thinking, and that choice would matter later. They wheeled me down a corridor toward the imaging department. The ride on that narrow bed felt longer than the drive to the hospital. Fluorescent panels slid past overhead like frames in a cheap slideshow. My mouth throbbed under the new padding, and I tasted fresh copper again. I focused on the rhythm of the wheels just to stop thinking about worst-case endings. At the imaging room door they parked me and double-checked my ID bracelet. Any chance you could be allergic to contrast dye? I shrugged as much as the straps allowed and tried to remember anything relevant. No clue, let's find out the fun way, right? It came out drier than I meant, and even I heard the fear under it. They slid me onto the hard table and told me not to move at all. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth and I wanted to cough. Every instruction felt like a test I was barely passing with shaking effort. A voice through the speaker told me when to hold my breath and release. I followed, counting the seconds, wondering if my body was quietly failing anyway. When it finally ended, they rolled me back to the curtain spot. The nurse tucked the blanket around my legs like I was a kid. Try to sleep if you can, doctor will talk once we have results. Sleep sounded like a dare more than advice at that point. My brain would not shut up, not with all those words like danger swirling. Alone again, I opened my messages and scrolled up our thread. Earlier lines from that evening looked ridiculous next to the current ones. Little jokes about outfits and songs sat above talk about emergency scans. If you ever want to see a relationship laid out in plain numbers, check timestamps. It hits different when you realize someone chose a party over your actual blood. Another picture came through, this time of her clinking glasses with friends. Hope you are okay, this place is insane. The photo caught strobe lights frozen mid-flash and her smile bright and wild. I lay there in a paper gown with dried red on my chin and stared at it. In that moment, I finally admitted to myself that we were not on the same team tonight. I woke up choking on air that felt too thick. My hand shot to my mouth before I even opened my eyes. The padding there was dry, stuck to cracked lips instead of soaked. For a second I thought maybe I had died in my sleep anyway. Then the monitor near my head sped up like it disagreed with that idea. Easy, you are okay right now. A nurse leaned over me and adjusted the line in my arm. Her badge swung close to my face as she checked the numbers. Bleeding slowed down overnight, you gave us a busy few hours. Hearing overnight hit me harder than the word busy. Overnight. I tried to sit up and a heavy ache slammed through my skull. Relax, you are still on meds, you had a vessel acting wild. She raised the bed a little instead, not giving me a choice. My tongue felt swollen and clumsy, like it belonged to someone else. She peeled the old padding away in one careful motion. Cold air touched my gums and everything throbbed in one dull wave. Still oozing a bit, not like before though. She tucked clean packing into place while I clenched my fists. I tasted faint salt and chemicals instead of that strong iron tang from before. When did I fall asleep? The words sounded rough, like I had been yelling for hours. Early morning, you kept drifting in and out during the scans. I remembered flashes of bright machines, people moving fast around me. It felt like a bad trailer of my own night, cut into broken clips. The curtain slid aside and the doctor from earlier stepped in. He carried a tablet and that calm voice that means bad news. Good morning, you gave us a scare. I watched his eyes, not his smile, because those never match. He glanced at the monitor before he looked straight at me. We found a damaged vessel in your mouth that started leaking. He tapped the screen, showing something I barely recognized as my insides. You also came in with your pressure way down and heart rate high. He said it like he was reading a weather report, steady and neutral. That combination can get dangerous pretty fast if no one intervenes. Dangerous. That word landed like a weight right in the middle of my chest. Be straight with me, was I actually in trouble or just freaking out? He folded his arms and took a breath before answering, which told me plenty. If you had stayed home like that for much longer, this chat might not happen. I stared at the ceiling and let that line repeat itself. I had almost stayed home, you know. I had almost listened to someone who told me to tough it out. The room felt smaller for a second, like the walls stepped closer. I gripped the sheet until my knuckles tightened and the monitors ticked faster. We sealed the bleeding spot and started fluids so numbers look better. He checked my mouth again with a small light that made my eyes water. Still watching you today, no heavy talking, no hard food, no stress. That last rule almost made me laugh right there. No stress with my life and relationship hanging from a thread. He stepped out and the nurse followed with a quiet nod. Their shoes faded down the hallway and left me with the beeping. It was just me and the buzzing from that little machine and my own thoughts. I lay there staring at the rail on T. He bed thinking about that might not happen. There is nothing like hearing you almost missed your own future by a few hours. My phone sat on the side tray, plugged into a cable. I reached for it slowly, careful not to pull the line in my arm. The screen lit up with a full green bar and a stack of alerts. I unlocked it, half bracing for messages from her all night. What I got instead made my stomach flip in a completely different way. At the top of the list was a single missed call from her. Timestamp 4 something in the morning, right in the blur zone. Under it one short text. You still alive? No question mark, nothing else, just those 3 words like a joke. Below that, the feed showed a row of fresh clips from her account. I tapped the first one because I am an idiot for my own pain. Music blasted through the speakers and lights cut across an overpacked room. She filled the center of the frame, hair swinging, mouth open around some chant. Behind her, another girl flashed the camera and lifted a glowing drink. I watched the time stamp at the top of the screen more than anything. One clip posted while I was getting rolled into imaging. Another during the time they slid me under that machine. A third right around when the doctor told me the word dangerous. That overlap did something strange inside my chest that I still feel now. I swiped to the next clip, then the next, like scratching at a sore. In one, she clung to a friend and yelled along to a chorus. In another, she spun around and pointed at the bottles on their table. The caption read, "Best night in forever, zero drama, just fun." Reading "zero drama" while attached to monitors hit me in a place I cannot unhit. I know social media is fake, whatever. People post the highlight, not the whole night. I tried using that tired idea to calm myself down. Maybe she had cried in the bathroom between those clips, maybe she worried. But the part she chose to show the world said something louder than any apology. I closed the app, opened our chat, then closed it again. Our latest exchange stared back at me like a screenshot of denial. Her last lines from the night before looked even colder with daylight. Hope you are okay, this place is insane. That combination aged badly in just a few hours under hospital lights. My thumb hovered over the call button for way too long. I imagined her still sleeping it off, makeup smeared on a pillow. If she answered, I pictured excuses tumbling out on autopilot. If she ignored it, I imagined her glancing at the screen and rolling over. None of those options felt good, so I dropped the phone back on the tray. A nurse stepped in again when my monitor jumped higher. Everything all right in here? She adjusted the line at my wrist and watched the numbers settle. Yeah, just looked at something I should have skipped. She gave me a long look like she knew exactly what I meant without details. You will see things differently for a few days, that is normal. Her voice softened in a way that had nothing to do with medicine. You go through a scare, it shakes more than your body. She checked the dressing in my mouth again and nodded to herself. You need anything, hit the button, do not tough it out. That last sentence cut deeper than she probably realized. Do not tough it out. The exact opposite of what I heard at home before all this. I lay back and let that new rule sink into the cracks. It felt small, but it was the first brick of something I had not built yet. When she left, I finally opened our thread and started typing. Doctor said it was serious, I almost waited too long. I paused, erased almost, replaced it with basically. Then erased that too, because I was still protecting her feelings. In the end I sent, they fixed it, staying here today. Her answer came quicker than I expected, like she had been awake. See, I told you they would handle it, you are fine. I stared at the word fine until it blurred on the glass. I wanted to shove the doctor's quote at her, every specific detail. Instead I just locked the screen and swallowed down the fight. If you are wondering why I did not blow up right there, join the club. I should have, I know that now, it would have saved time. Back then though, I still treated her comfort like a priority. I kept telling myself she was just tired, just overwhelmed, just drunk. Apparently, I had endless justifications ready to go on repeat for her. Another nurse rolled in a cart with a tray and a clipboard. Need you to sign, then we can give you something light to drink. My hand shook a little as I scribbled my name along the line. Even that tiny movement made the IV in my arm tug uncomfortably. You have someone bringing you home later today. I opened my mouth, then closed it, then nodded too slowly. Yeah, I will find a ride. That was the first time I actually said it out loud. Not my girlfriend is coming, just a ride. Felt like I downgraded us by accident, but maybe my brain was ahead of me. When she left, I grabbed my phone again with a new plan. I scrolled past her name and tapped on a friend from work instead. Typed wild night, ended up an emergency, call later. I did not send it yet, my thumb rested on the arrow. Just knowing I had another option for help made my chest loosen a little. That morning was the first time I pictured going home without her. Not breaking up yet, nothing that bold, just the image of walking out alone. No one snapping a quick, leaving the hospital selfie, no fake concern. Just me, my discharge papers, maybe a ride from someone who actually cared. I did not realize it then, but that small picture would become the real exit later. Her key scraped the lock while I was still half lying on the couch. I sat up too fast, and my vision narrowed in on nothing. The release papers slid off my lap and hit the floor. She walked in all attitude and leftover party energy. Wow, you look rough, like you lost a fight. Her eyes did a quick scan from my jaw to the band on my wrist. She did not hug me or touch my shoulder, just judged. I grabbed the papers from the floor before she stepped on them. You did not answer any of my calls. She dropped her bag by the table and gave me a look. Like I was the one who disappeared all night and left her guessing. Guilt kicked in before anger could even get started, which still annoys me now. I was in a hospital bed, remember? My voice came out hoarse. My jaw ached when I talked and my tongue felt huge. They told me if I waited longer things could have gone bad fast. I watched her face for any sign that this landed anywhere inside. She shifted her weight to the other leg and opened her drink. Doctors always talk like that, they love scaring people. She took a sip and shrugged like I had told her about traffic. You are here, you are breathing, so clearly it was not that extreme. I stared at her wrist where a club stamp still faintly showed. She had gone from that floor straight to some late food, then here. She had not even napped or cleaned up, just rolled and buzzing. That tiny stamp bothered me more than the soreness in my jaw. Why did you not call me this morning, though? She dropped onto the other end of the couch and stretched her legs. I woke up and saw your text and nearly freaked out. She pressed her hand over her chest like replaying a scary movie. That line made something in me twitch because it did not match reality. She had been posting party clips while I watched my heart numbers jump. I pulled my phone from the coffee table and opened her story feed. You were pretty busy to be freaking out. I turned the screen toward her. The clip with the caption about zero drama stared up at both of us. Then the one where she wrote that the night was perfect and easy. Her jaw clenched for a flash before she gave a little laugh. You know I post dumb stuff when I drink, do not read into that. Dumb stuff is one thing, calling it zero drama while I am in emergency is another. The words came out sharper than I planned, and my jaw pulsed in response. She flinched like I had shouted, even though my voice stayed low. So now I am not allowed to have a fun night ever. I rubbed my temple and tried to keep my breathing slow and steady. That is not what I am saying, and you know it. I pointed at the band on my wrist because words were not landing. I almost did not walk out of there, that is the point. She stared at the band like it was a bracelet she had not noticed before. Her mouth twisted and she leaned back like the couch suddenly bothered her. You are being dramatic again, you always jump to the worst case. The word again landed harder than dramatic, and I felt my jaw tighten. The doctor literally told me more hours at home could have gone very wrong. I knew I sounded like a broken record, but I needed her to hear it. She rolled her eyes and dragged a hand through her hair with a groan. Doctors say that to everyone so they do not get sued later. There it was again, that thing where she turned fear into an inconvenience. Not her fault, not my near collapse, just annoying paperwork waiting for them. I could feel the argument moving in circles we had done before, only louder. Except this time there was a hospital bracelet instead of a misplaced wallet. You know what really freaked me out? Her voice cut in sharper now. You text me that you are going to emergency, and then nothing. Her voice pitched higher now and her hands cut through the air. Do you know how scary that is for me? Something in me snapped at the phrase "for me" in that moment. All night had been for me already, apparently that was the theme. You could have walked into the building instead of the club, you realize that. My voice went flat, which somehow made her stiffen even more. She stood up fast like Sid. Being next to me was suddenly unbearable. So now you are punishing me for going out one night. She grabbed her tote and slung it over her shoulder with jerky movements. You always twist everything into me being selfish or heartless. That word always landed like a punch straight to my chest. I opened my mouth to answer and shut it again just as fast. This was the part where I usually apologized for making her feel bad. My tongue moved toward the same old script and I actually stopped it. The pause gave my phone enough time to buzz on the table. Her eyes flashed to the screen right away like she smelled new attention. I picked it up before her and saw a message from a mutual friend. There was a screenshot attached from a chat I was not in. I opened it and my stomach dropped harder than in any scan that night. At the top was her name, under it a line she had typed at the club. He does this whenever I want to go out, always some crisis. Under that she had added another line in the chat. He is so manipulative, I swear. My hand actually shook, I will not even lie about that. I had brushed off a lot of careless comments before, but that word hit different. Manipulative stayed on the screen like it was burned into the glass. Behind it I could still see her, pacing in my living room and acting hurt. What is that? Why do you look like that? Her voice cut through the space. She reached for the phone and I pulled it back out of reach. Nothing, just got proof I am not crazy. I turned the screen toward her before I could talk myself out of it. Her eyes ran over the messages once, then again more slowly. Her shoulders went rigid and her jaw pushed forward like she wanted to bite something. They were venting. You were not supposed to ever see that. Out of everything she could have said, that was her first move. Not an apology, not even a wince, just anger. I had proof. That is our private chat and you are using it against me. She looked offended in a way she had never looked about my actual condition. So you do not deny writing it? My voice stayed steady somehow. I pointed at the word manipulative like it might jump off the screen. She crossed her arms tight across her chest and stared past me at the wall. You guilt trip me all the time, you use tears and health stuff to control me. I laughed once, a short, ugly sound that made my jaw throb again. I had bled on our bathroom sink and somehow we were at tears now. Right, me nearly passing out is a strategy to ruin your bottle service. My hands trembled and I locked them together so she would not see it. There it is again, the sarcasm you run to when you get cornered. She dropped her bag back down and paced a short line across the room. I had one night planned for weeks and you turned it into this circus. The way she said this made it sound like I was the problem, not the event. Some part of me wanted to argue point by point and lay out a timeline. Another part was just tired, the kind of tired medicine does not touch. You know what, I will not fight about this while my mouth still feels carved up. I leaned back into the couch and the room swayed for a second again. She watched me slump down and I could see the calculation start behind her eyes. Her tone shifted like she hit a different script she kept for moments like this. Look, I care about you obviously and I am just overwhelmed, okay? Her voice softened and she sat down again but stayed at the far cushion. Last night was supposed to be fun and it turned into a horror movie. She looked at me like I had done that on purpose, like I directed it. I am human, I wanted a break and then you scared me like that. Her eyes actually glossed over and for a second I almost broke again. This is the part I am least proud of when I look back. I almost apologized right there after reading those messages on my screen. My brain tried one last time to spin this into a misunderstanding. Maybe she exaggerated for her friends, maybe she was drunk and stupid with words. Then I pictured the nurse telling me not to tough things out anymore. I heard her voice again saying my choice to come in had probably saved me. Those two realities did not match, no matter how kind I tried to be. One was me nearly losing consciousness on a sink, the other was her dancing. I am not punishing you for wanting a night out. I watched my own hands while I talked so I would not lose my nerve. I am asking why my life or death became background noise for your party. The room stayed silent except for a car horn outside and my heart banging. She stared at me for a long moment like she was weighing something heavy. I cannot do this right now, she grabbed her things in one motion. I am exhausted and you are obviously not in a place to talk calmly. The door closed behind her a minute later and the quiet felt louder than any argument. I stared at the word manipulative still lit on my phone screen. She thought my fear was a tactic and not a warning sign or plea. For the first time I stopped worrying about losing her and started worrying about staying. I did not know it yet, but that was the beginning of the end. I stuffed her clothes into a grocery bag and stopped halfway. My jaw still throbbed with each bend, my wristband cutting into my skin. The living room looked like a half-finished move-out. I stood there holding one of her shirts, heart racing again for no good reason. It felt like I was stealing from my own life. My phone buzzed on the table and broke the trance. Same friend who had sent the screenshot earlier lit up my screen. You still breathing, or did she talk you into apologizing already? I hit call instead of typing because my hands would not stay steady. Hearing another human voice felt safer than my own head. He picked up on the first ring, background noise humming behind him. Tell me you at least saw that chat before taking her back. I saw it, my throat tightened as I lowered myself onto the couch. For a second I could not get more words out, my tongue heavy. You were not crazy, man, that message was nasty even for her. I pressed my fingers against my temple and closed my eyes. Did she say anything else about me in there? He went quiet for a breath and I heard a chair creak. Stuff about you ruining nights, making up emergencies to trap her. My stomach flipped again and I actually laughed in disbelief. Okay, so I am not imagining this pattern. My voice sounded weirdly calm, almost no emotion in it. I almost passed out on tile and she called that control. Saying it aloud made the whole story sound even more twisted. I think that was the second everything inside me snapped for real. You do not have to decide right away, just do not gaslight yourself. He let the words hang there and I focused on my breathing. Whatever you choose, it was messed up, anyone can see that. I thanked him and hung up before I lost my nerve. Silence rushed back in, louder than his advice. I picked up the bag again and took it to the bedroom. Her makeup bag still sat open on the dresser from the night before. I zipped it shut and dropped it into the pile. Then I backed away from it like it might burst. Each object pushed the same question into my head about backing out. Before I could overthink it, I grabbed my phone again. My fingers typed out a message before my brain caught up. Your stuff is packed, come get it today, I need space. I hovered over send with my thumb shaking for a full minute. Then I hit it and set the phone face down so I could not stare. The reply landed faster than I expected, barely a few minutes later. Wow, so this is how you treat me after all that stress. Then another line popped in under it with no pause. I am coming over, do not touch anything else. I read both texts twice and realized my mind was already made up. When she knocked, I opened the door and stepped aside. Her eyes went straight to the bags like they were bombs. You are serious about this? She brushed past me without waiting for an answer, perfume harsh in the air. I stayed by the doorway because if I went closer, I knew I would soften. She crouched by the first bag and started sorting through it. You threw everything together like trash, nothing is folded. I almost apologized on reflex and caught myself with my teeth clenched. Kind of matched how last night felt for me. She froze for half a second, then kept digging like she had not heard it. Are we really ending over one bad night? She straightened up and looked at me like I was ungrateful. I was terrified and drunk and you are punishing me for coping. That word punished bounced around in my skull and would not settle. I leaned on the doorframe to keep from pacing the whole room. You were terrified at a club while I was hooked to monitors. I stayed by the door because if I moved I would shout. They told me I could have collapsed alone if I stayed home. My voice shook on that word alone more than I wanted it to. You chose that table and flashing lights instead of a 30-minute drive. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might stick. I already told you I panicked. I shut down when things get scary. She pressed her hand against her chest again, gesture on repeat. You know my history with hospitals, you threw that in my face. Somewhere in there she turned herself into the only fragile person in the room. Look at how fast you make it about you again. I pointed at the bracelet still on my wrist, plastic digging into skin. You walked out in heels while I was spitting blood into the sink. I heard my own volume climb and forced it back down with effort. I am not doing this version of reality anymore, it almost killed me. She dropped onto the edge of the bed, shoulders finally sagging. For the first time since this started, her voice came out. Small. I messed up last night, I know that, I hated myself after. Tears gathered at the edge of her lashes and started to spill. I watched and felt almost nothing except a dull, tired ache in my chest. I will do better, I swear, no more club nights like that. She reached for my hand and I stepped back out of range. We can go to therapy, I will delete half my contacts, whatever you need. Hearing the word therapy come out so fast felt like a sales pitch. I believed she was scared of losing me, I did not believe she understood why. This is not about dance floors or drinks anymore. I heard my own tone then, steady in a way that scared me. I needed help getting to urgent care, and you chose fun instead. I watched the exact moment that line hit, a flicker then a wall. You called me manipulative to your friends while I was lying there. That chat was private, her jaw clenched and she wiped her face quickly. You were never supposed to read those words or use them like weapons. She sounded outraged by the exposure, not by the content itself. I vent when I feel trapped and you cornered me last night. Every sentence she threw out pushed me further away from whatever we were. I am not your cage and I am not your nurse. The first half surprised me, the second part did not. That line from the bathroom came back around and settled differently now. I am the person who asked you for a ride to stay alive. I stood up straighter and realized I had already stepped out of this relationship. So that is it, you are just tossing me out with one talk. She laughed once through tears, sharp and humorless in the small room. After everything I have done for you, this is what I get. The script flipped again and suddenly I was the cold one. Old me would have fallen for that and begged her to stay. Yeah, this is it. I felt the words land in my own body as I said them. I cannot stay with someone who thinks my fear is a stunt. My hands finally stopped shaking once I chose that sentence. I want you to take your things and give me the keys back. She stared at me like she did not recognize the person talking. For a second I almost did not either, which was darkly funny. Then she pulled the key off her ring and dropped it on the dresser. Metal hitting wood sounded louder than any fight we had that day. Do not come begging when you miss me, she threw over her shoulder. The door shut behind her and the apartment went strangely still. I listened for footsteps fading down the hall until they disappeared. My jaw pulsed in time with my heartbeat, but the rest of me loosened. It felt like someone sliced a cord that had been wrapped around my chest. For the first time since the sink, I took a full breath without flinching. I sat on the couch with my phone in both hands. The unlocked screen glowed up at me, empty of new messages. Without thinking too hard, I opened Reddit and hit the little plus. My fingers hovered for a second over the title bar. Then I typed, "My girlfriend ditched me to go clubbing instead of taking me to the hospital." Seeing the title written out like that rattled me more than expected. It looked exaggerated, like something people post for clicks. Except every part of it was just the timeline without decoration. I started laying out the night in short lines and timestamps. Every detail I wrote made the whole thing harder to excuse. I described the bathroom first, then the ride, then the hospital tests. I even pasted the screenshot of her message about ordering drinks. I added the group chat line where she called me controlling and worse. Typing it all in one place felt like stacking evidence on a table. My hands trembled the whole time, but I kept going until it was complete. Before posting, I stared at the last question I had written. Am I overreacting by ending this, or is this as bad as it sounds? Part of me still hoped someone would say I was wrong and dramatic. Because if I was not, that meant I had stayed in something ugly. Finally, I hit submit and watched the spinning icon turn into my post. Comments started dropping in faster than I could read them. The top ones all started with some version of "dude, no." People pointed out every red flag I had tiptoed around for months. Strangers were angrier for me than I had ever been for myself. That contrast did more for my clarity than any talk we could have had. One person wrote she did not forget she chose. Another wrote that I should show the thread to my therapist someday. Someone else zoomed in on her calling me manipulative and got furious. Reading their words felt like a cold splash that snapped me awake. For once, my brain stopped inventing excuses and just listened. I did not answer her texts that night when they finally came. First, there were angry ones about me, blasting our business online. Then long paragraphs about how the internet hates women and loves drama. Old me would have. He rushed to smooth it over and calm her down. New me muted the thread and dropped the phone on the table. I am not going to lie, I cried once the adrenaline dipped. Not over losing her exactly, more over losing my own respect before. I had ignored so many smaller moments just to keep the peace. That sink and that ride and that monitor pulled all of them into focus. It hurt, but it felt honest in a way I had avoided for years. By the time the sun came up through the blinds, I had made one quiet promise. Next time my body or gut screamed that something was wrong, I would listen. Not to Google and not to any partner begging for one more carefree night. To my own fear, the same instinct that dragged me into that rideshare. Because the person who left me bleeding for a party is not someone I ever want beside my hospital bed again.